What's going on, guys? It's Coach and Matt with the FF Mediators, and we are here with our 5 must-avoid players based on the risk and ADP surrounding their names. So let's get straight to it. Our first player on our list, Coach, is none other than someone you have talked a lot about. It's going to be Kenneth Walker, currently going off the board as running back 17 with an ADP of 42, so he's a pretty high pick. The talent is there, but the situation has been pretty rough. Coach, why are you avoiding Kenneth Walker in your rookie drafts?
Listen, I got to say, Kenneth Walker's a guy I just don't trust. I just don't trust him. His first year in the NFL and PPR, he was running back 18, second year 19, third year 27. Like that injury history scares the crap out of me. I understand, he has a lot of talent, but he stays hurt. There's tons of risk involved with drafting him where he's at. And there's just guys around him that I feel better drafting. I would much rather have Chuba, Travion Henderson, even James Conner. I'd rather have any of those guys than Kenneth Walker, mostly because they're a lot safer and I can trust them a lot more than I can trust Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, we see here, Coach, year one, he played 15 games. Year two, he played 15 games. And then this past season, he played 11 games. He eclipsed 1,000 yards one time. He's made a ton of big plays. He's done that every single year, but you've mentioned the injuries. They have popped up, and they have popped up frequently. And the concern for me, and I've been a Kenneth Walker fan, is he now rolls into this upcoming season hurt again. And the early reports were he was fine. So I spent a lot of times defending Kenneth Walker and saying we should still be ready to draft him. But now we're stepping in towards the season, and it still feels like a little bit murky in that situation. You almost don't know what to do with it. And I'm kind of with you. I'd rather draft some of these other names like Chuba Hubbard. Travion Henderson has looked really electric and played very, very well this preseason. So I would love to have him. The one that I'll give you some pushback with is James Conner. So I'd push it back to you, Coach. Do you think that James Conner has a higher upside than Kenneth Walker if they're both healthy?
No, I do not. I think if they both stay healthy all year long, Kenneth Walker probably has a little more upside than James Conner. James Conner just had that really solid season last year and signed a contract. I feel good about James Conner. The thing about Kenneth Walker is he in 2023 when he played 15 games, he still finished as running back 19. But he's being drafted as running back 17 right now. I just don't see that as being feasible. I would be shocked if he played 17 games.
Yeah, I mean, running backs, it's always that position where they miss a couple games. So missing 2 games in year 1 and 2, I don't put much stock in that. But only playing in 11 games last year, that's more concerning. And again, he's already rolling into the year hurt, and he hasn't really had any real opportunities to play. He's played in some of the joint practices. That's great. But it would have been nice to see him get out there for even the dress rehearsal of the preseason. And not to mention, Charbonnet hasn't looked too bad, Coach. I mean, he's played well. I know Pete spent a lot of time talking about how it's a guy he really likes who could earn a real role in this offense.
Well, and I'd be more concerned about a guy like Charbonnet eating into Kenneth Walker than I would Trey Benson eating into James Conner, just to be honest.
Ooh. I think I really agree with that, Coach. I would say that, Benson has way more to prove to get that role than Charbonnet does. I mean, we've already seen Charb fill in for Kenneth Walker and play well, and we've seen him be involved and not necessarily force a split role. But I think the longer that this drags on, the more likely it's going to turn into that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think he's going to split the role, maybe not completely split it, but I could see a 65-35 split, even if they're both there and healthy.
Yeah. Kenneth Walker, he is that high risk, possibly high reward play if he stays healthy. But I mean, if he's not healthy, like you mentioned, at RB17, we're talking about a guy who's probably slotting in as your RB2 on your team, or God forbid, your RB1. That's a scary situation. So I would probably be looking elsewhere if it's going to be my RB1. If it's going to be my RB2, it'd have to be a really strong bell cow in front of him, like Bijan Robinson or maybe a Saquon Barkley on my team before I would want to do it.
Yeah, I just think if you draft Kenneth Walker where he's going at 17 and he plays amazing, then he's going to be like RB 15, 14, something like that. But if anything goes south even a little bit injury-wise, his normal history, then you're getting ready to lose out.
Yeah, well, let's talk about our next must-avoid, Coach, and that's going to be DK Metcalf, wide receiver moving over to the Pittsburgh Steelers from the Seattle Seahawks. He's been another big-time playmaker, but kind of hasn't really developed into that full capable wide receiver to kind of be the one on your fantasy team, coach. What's your expectations given the ADP and the current situation for DK Metcalf?
Man, DK is a guy I really feel as if has been the most overrated receiver in the NFL the last 2 or 3 years. He has been on a steady decline. Now, I understand people are going to say that's because he was in Seattle, yada, yada, yada. I mean, he went from in PPR, wide receiver 14 to 16 to 21 to 32. So he's been consistently getting, worse. So is this situation way better than what he had in Seattle?
Yeah, I'm not sure that it is better. I think it might be just as bad or maybe even worse. I mean, we have an aging Rodgers. Can he produce for fantasy? Maybe, but it hasn't been great the last 2 years. I mean, the touchdowns of Aaron Rodgers of old, who's throwing for 40 or 35 plus, it's not there. DK, like you mentioned, has been on steady decline. The names around him, coach, Cortland Sutton, Devontae Smith, Zay Flowers, Calvin Ridley, Ted McMillan. Flowers, Ridley, and Tet are all cheaper than DK Metcalf, and I think they have higher upside, and they might even be safer plays.
Yeah, I totally agree. To me, especially a guy like Tet, I would be shocked if he doesn't finish ahead of DK. Now I know people are still in love with Aaron Rodgers, but he's just not the guy he used to be. He's at best. He's just okay. Metcalf's going to be dependent on scoring touchdowns, and I just don't know how great this Steeler offense is going to be.
Yeah, that's the biggest question. A lot of this is going to hinge on Rodgers. And like you mentioned, he's touchdown dependent. The year he's performed in fantasy is the years he's had high touchdown numbers. And those haven't been coming the last couple of years. Like you said, you can talk about whether that's a product of Seattle or not. But I mean, let's both agree the Seattle passing game was better than what the Steelers have had in the last couple of years. And I'm not sure I suddenly expect that to be better just because Aaron Rodgers arrives in town. Rodgers didn't necessarily play that great last year either.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, Geno played pretty good. The Seattle passing attack is far better than anything the Steelers had in the last 5 years.
Yeah, and I'm not certain that I can say that right now DK Metcalf looks like he could finish as the wide receiver 21. I mean, I get that's a wide receiver too, but that's a pretty high price you're paying for a guy going at ADP 50. And like I said, you can get Sutton, who's performed well, looks like another year of possible double-digit touchdowns for him. Devontae Smith, that's a higher upside play to me. Zay Flowers, he hasn't had positive touchdowns for him. I mean, he's only had 2 or 3, I think, each year. And last year, Lamar threw for 40 of them. So I certainly could see him jumping up and producing better than wide receiver 21 numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And those other guys you mentioned, they just are in better offenses, in my opinion. And that alone gives you more opportunity.
Yeah, and that opportunity is kind of what we're really chasing. It's a product of what can you get for these players and what is their current situation. And for me, I don't like the Steelers situation. I don't like where DK Metcalf's at, and I do not like the price you're going to have to pay to get him on your team.
Yep, I'm 100% with you.
Well, let's talk about, Coach, one of your favorite players, and this is probably going to be a hot topic and push some buttons for people. Let's talk about Bo Nix. And I know that you are a huge Bo Nix fan. That goes back very far in our dynasty leagues and kind of our dynasty podcasts and talks we've had, Coach. He's currently being drafted as the QB8. His ADP is 77 overall. And for me, I have some major concerns, Coach. I mean, again, he played all of last year, 17 games played, 567 passing attempts with 3,700 yards, 66% completion percentage, added 29 passing touchdowns. That's fantastic. You see here 19.4 points per game, where he finished as QB8. And so my concern is we are currently drafting Bo Nix at his ceiling. He absolutely played fantastic last year. And Coach gets mad at me because I always say he's a fine quarterback. He's very good. But I do not think that we should be drafting him this high, especially given the names you can get him much cheaper. I mean, I'd rather have Dak Prescott that has an equally high upside with possibly more passing weapons than Bo Nix has, or a guy like Drake May, maybe Kyler Murray. You can also talk about Trevor Lawrence, Herb, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud. All of these names are cheaper than Bo Nix. I'm concerned we're drafting him at a ceiling, and it's also very possible he could have regression. I mean, we saw what CJ Stroud did in year one. Rookie year was fantastic. He comes back this past season, didn't play that very well. I mean, it's certainly in the cards for Bo Nix, and I do think that Bo Nix has that has to be acknowledged. I mean, we've talked about maybe Jaden Daniels regressing with the lack of Terry McLaurin being in camp. What could happen there? I don't know, but I do think that Bo Nix is currently be taking at his ceiling, and for him to pay off, I think that there's some risk there.
Man, Matt, come on now. Bo Nix is good, dude. What are you talking about? Now, here's why. Let me tell you why I like Bo Nix, actually. Couple things. Bo Nix last year only threw for 3,700 yards, right? So there's room for improvement there, significant room for improvement there. He's attached to an elite play caller in Sean Payton. His feet are really good. He's a good athlete. And let's not forget, RJ Harvey, Evan Ingram, these guys have been added to the room around him. So the weapons he has have gotten better. Like, it wouldn't shock me for him to finish right where he was at again, or even overproduce and become a top 5 quarterback. That wouldn't shock me because of his athleticism and the weapons that have been added around him.
Yeah, and I understand that he's a great player, so I don't want to take away from that. But my biggest concern
you say fine player. He's
fine. He's fine. He's fine. He is fine. But what I'm more concerned about is if he finishes as QB 12, which is very possible, then what you did is you lost a ton of value, because currently being drafted at pick 77, we're talking about guys like Rome Odunze, Jordan Addison, Debo Samuel. Those are names in that area, which would be a plug-and-play player for you, whether it's your wide receiver 3, if you're in a 3 wide receiver league, or your flex play, something to that effect. Where on the flip, you could draft Dak Prescott, get equal production, and what I would argue a better passing offense with names like George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, and Ferguson, as opposed to Sutton, Marvin Mims, and Evan Ingram. Like, I would rather have that Dallas option and take Dak 3 or 4 rounds later, so you can bolster your lineup in other spots. Because once you take that early quarterback, your roster's kind of pinned in at a certain position. You're going to have a little bit of a depth issue, or one position might be weaker. And if I can avoid that situation, I'm doing it. Because, again, names like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, they're all going nearly undrafted or at the very end. So you can get them and fill up your team with all sorts of positional players and get better value, in my opinion, than wasting a pick on Bo Nix as the QB 8. Sometimes he's going higher than that, QB 6, QB 7, and going in the top 70 picks. That's way too high for me.
Well, we talked about last year in our buy video about Dak Prescott. Let's talk about a couple other names around. So tell me what you think here. Would you rather have Bo Nix or Kyler Murray?
I think I'd rather have Murray, just given the fact that I think the rushing upside leans towards Murray. But at the same time, again, he's cheaper. And I like the cheaper play than taking Bo Nix.
But now, if the concern is I'm going to draft him at 8, he's only going to finish around 8. I mean, I got the value that I expected to get.
Sure. But if he finishes as 12 or 14, then suddenly you didn't get that value. And again, there's lots of names that can push up. I mean, what we know is you can say, yeah, his situation improved. How much has it improved? We have an unproven RJ Harvey, and we've got Evan Ingram, who's looked fine in the preseason. Don't want to take away from Evan Ingram. Whereas on the other side, I mentioned the uptick in the Dallas office adding George Pickens. I think we both would agree that the New England offense has gotten significantly better at adding to that offensive line, getting a guy like Travion Henderson. We both have been really high on Kyle Williams, so you like that. The LA Charger offense with Justin Herbert adds Trey Harris, Keenan Allen stepping in back to the Chargers. So that passing game, in my opinion, has gotten significantly better, not to mention Amari and Hampton, who's good in the passing game. And then we can talk about the Jags with Trevor Lawrence. They add Travis Hunter. So I think that these other quarterbacks have equal weapons, if not better, and they're also just so much cheaper that you can add to your fantasy roster and not have to waste a high pick on Bo Nix.
Well, here's the thing. In my opinion, Bo Nix is going to finish ahead of Kyler Murray. He's going to finish ahead of Drake May for sure. He's going to finish ahead of Herbert because in Los Angeles, they're going to run the ball. I don't care who they brought in. They're going to run the ball like crazy. Every metric shows that. And when Harbaugh's coaching a team, he's going to hand the ball off a ton. Herbert's not going to throw it a lot. While I do think Lawrence is actually going to play a little better. I know you're a Lawrence, like the president of his fan club. I do think he's going to play better. I just think Bo Nix is going to finish ahead of these guys. The only guy I think has a possibility to finish ahead of him is Dak Prescott. I get that. We talked about Kyler Murray, and you said you'd rather have Kyler Murray. Well, Kyler Murray's still going to finish behind him. Like, I understand there's value in taking Murray later, but if Bo Nix finishes as quarterback 8 and Murray finishes as quarterback 12. Well, I drafted Bo Nix earlier because I got a better player.
Okay, now my question to you is, if they both play 17 games, let's say they're both healthy, life is good, who finishes higher, Bo Nix or CJ Stroud?
Bo Nix.
Okay. Do you think there's a world where CJ Stroud with a healthy Nico, healthy Jaden Higgins, could be higher than Bo Nix?
Yeah, I mean, there's a world. Like, I think Stroud's going to be improved. He
Mhm.
struggled bad last year compared to his rookie year. I think he'll be better. I just don't think he's going to quite finish ahead of Bo Nix. And
Okay.
Jordan Love, for instance, I don't think Jordan Love's going to be close. Like,
Yeah.
I expect a nothing burger from Jordan Love.
Love is probably the one that I would put on the outskirts of all that. I think all the other names I'd rather have. But I just like their costs and I like the situations better than Bo Nix. Again, I think he's going to be fine. I think he can finish as QB 10 to 12. But I just do have concerns about him being QB 8, especially in the leagues where he's going as QB 6 or 7. That's just way too high for me. And I don't want to waste that high of a pick on a guy who I don't think is a lock to, reproduce that season that he had or finish that high.
All right. I always have to agree to disagree here, I'm afraid.
Well, let's talk about another player, Coach, and this one breaks my heart. Let's talk about Terry McLaurin. Obviously, I'm a big-time Washington fan, currently going as wide receiver 16 with an ADP of 40. I love Terry to death. I think he's a fantastic player, but his current ADP and his draft situation, this is insane to me. I don't know how you come in and you make this pick. I mean, last year was his best season. He played in 17 games, had 117 targets with 82 receptions, almost 1,100 yards, and he added 13 touchdowns through the air. The touchdowns have always been an issue for Terry McLaurin. He was able to connect with Jaden Daniels, and it was fantastic. I loved every second of last season, but I do have my concerns about what happens this year, Coach. So let us know, what's your thoughts on Terry McLaurin's current situation, his ADP? Are you in on that or are you out?
Well, for one, Terry McLaurin's a heck of a player. Like, he's a really good wide receiver that I would want on my own actual football team, right? But at his ADP, a wide receiver 16, I know he was wide receiver 7 in PPR last year. The problem is, the holdout. Like, I get that. But the other problem is Deebo Samuel. Like, that's the biggest concern for me. Like, Deebo is going to command some targets away from Terry McLaurin. He just is. I think Terry's, like I say, he's a really good player. I just don't think he's going to finish above wide receiver 16 again. That's why I think it's a risky play. Like, the Commanders' offense is really good. It's got even better with Deebo. And now I think Terry's going to suffer as a result.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Again, fantastic player, but it's just the situation. The holdout, while ordinarily I'm not too concerned, I think he's a good vet. He's going to step in. He knows the offense, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe start a little bit slower. Just given the fact that he hasn't been on the field and making those reps in practice and, going through the motions in the preseason games, that's concerning to me. And you mentioned Deebo Samuel, huge addition for this team. I mean, last year we were talking about how Terry McLaurin was really competing with nothing. I mean, Noah Brown was essentially their second best wide receiver, and De'Ami Brown came on into the playoffs. But other than that, no one really did anything. So it was just about Jaden Daniels making plays, making the right read, and then Terry McLaurin making big plays all over the field. And I have concerns about that. I mean, and we step back and we look at the names around him, Coach. We're talking about Cortland Sutton, who we know is going to probably have double-digit touchdowns, Devontae Smith, Ted McMillan, even Marvin Harrison Jr., all being drafted behind Terry McLaurin. And I think that those are some players that can provide you just as much upside, but might even be a little bit safer.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier, talking about Terry's touchdowns. Like, 13 touchdowns is a lot. Like, it's almost impossible to replicate. That's a major issue for me. And like a guy like Cortland Sutton, who in my opinion is still far and away the best receiver in the room in Denver, I would rather have a Cortland Sutton than Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, and you're getting him at a cheaper cost. And I mean, if we
Right.
step back and look at the fantasy finishes of Terry McLaurin, you mentioned it, wide receiver 7 last year, and his next best season was when he finished wide receiver 14 in 2022. But every other year, he has finished in the 20s. So there is a little bit of concern where he might not be able to step in and fill those shoes. And the threat of Debo, they also have Bill coming in. Maybe they can run the ball and have some more explosive plays in the backfield. that's possible too. I mean, this team has a lot of different ways to hit you, and I think that they're about fast pace and kind of changing things. And right now, Terry McLaurin's the guy outside looking in.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be really good. He is. Now, if he finishes wide receiver 25, that's more around where I expect him to finish,
Yeah.
which is why I would be avoiding him at where he's slotted at.
Yeah, I just think the names there are much safer, and they're going to have equally high upside than you would get from just taking Terry McLaurin in that situation that he's currently in.
Yep.
Coach, anything else you want to add about Terry McLaurin?
No, I think we've pretty much summed it up.
Well, let's talk about our final sell here, Coach, and it's another big one, and it's someone that you've talked a lot about. And it's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. When we step back and look at the rookie year, Coach, he played in all 17 games, had 116 targets, only 62 receptions, 885 yards, and 8 touchdowns through the air, averaged 11.6 fantasy points, finishing as wide receiver 39. Coach, what's your thoughts on Marvin Harrison? I know you're a guy that has been pretty critical of him and not necessarily in on his current ADP cost.
Yeah, I think his ADP is entirely too high. Last year he was wide receiver 30 in PPR. Now he's going as wide receiver 18. I just don't see it, man. I'm not a believer in Kyler Murray for one, but more than that, like it's really about Marv. Like I don't see the burst. I do not see the elite top 10, top 15 wide receiver potential in Marvin Harrison Jr. that, he was billed to be. It's more about the hype, and is he going to live up to that hype? I just don't think he is. I think he's an okay wide receiver 2, maybe. I think I would expect him to finish more around wide receiver 25. I don't expect his target number to be any higher than it was last year. Can Kyler play better? Can he get more open? Where instead of 116 targets and 62 receptions, can he get 120 targets and 85 receptions? I don't see it, man. I just don't see it with his ability and his overall athleticism. That would really surprise me. What do you think?
I think I'm a little higher on Marvin Harrison than you, but I am kind of in your camp now. If he's one of those players to steal what I say about Bo Nix, he's fine. He's a fine player, but I don't know if he can be the one to carry an offense. We simply haven't seen it yet, and it also raises the questions of, well, is Kyler the problem? Is Kyler the guy to lead this team? He might not be. Maybe Marv needs some more help from the quarterback position. But what we do know, Coach, is that this Arizona Cardinals team is basically re-rolling what they did last year. It's James Conner, it's Marvin Harrison Jr., and it's Trey McBride. Like, those are going to be the main playmakers for this offense. So it's not like anything is really changing. So I'm not sure I can really project anything different, like you said. I mean, maybe he catches a few more balls than 62, gets a little bit more yardage, but it's also possible that those 8 touchdowns regress into 5.
Yeah, and one name that really jumps out at me is there are people drafting Garrett Wilson beneath him, and I just don't get it. Like Garrett Wilson to me is a far superior football player to Marv. I mean, it's really just that simple for me. I just think Garrett Wilson's better, and he also has no other wide receivers in the room with him either. And not a lot of threat for targets whatsoever. At least in Arizona, there's McBride, where in New York, there's nobody.
Yeah, and the thing to Garrett Wilson, I mean, we mentioned that just because they're back-to-back in wide receiver rankings, but their ADP is kind of flipped. It's gone back and forth where Garrett Wilson is being drafted after Marvin Harrison. Wilson has had an unbelievable target share every single year he's played, and that's not changing this year. He is going to step into that role, and he's produced better than Marvin Harrison has. And I get we only have 1 year and on one sample size for Marvin Harrison Jr., but I would much rather have Garrett Wilson. He's safer, and he's a higher upside play. Some other names around him that are cheaper, Ted McMillan. That's another upside play, in my opinion. You can draft him almost a round later, if not more, and get just as much upside. I mean, he's in an offense where he's the one. It's a little bit unproven at quarterback play, just like Kyler Murray. We've seen this Panthers offense kind of look a little bit better. I mean, there's some upticks. I wouldn't say that they're fully there yet, but I'm at least intrigued. Devontae Smith has finished as a top 12 wide receiver before. He's cheaper. Cortland Sutton, we've already talked about him, Coach, and he's got that touchdown opportunity, so I'd rather have him.
Yeah, by a mile, in my opinion. I mean, there is a world where Marvin Harrison Jr. could have a really good year, catch more of those targets that he's getting, and finish as wide receiver 18. But to me, that would be like capping out, right? Like that would be his ceiling to me, would be wide receiver 18. He would have to have one heck of a year. Whereas there's not a lot of room for just him being okay. Like I think he's a decent receiver. I just don't think he's what he was billed to be. That's all.
Yeah, and I think he's one of those players where if I did end up drafting him, maybe it was a value, maybe he falls, or maybe I'm in a situation where I feel like I have to take him. He was probably someone that I'd be looking to move after the first 2 or 3 weeks, and they've produced. I'd use him to go and get a guy like Garrett Wilson, to go get a guy like Tet McMillan if he's looking solid, some other playmaker on my team, just so I can have better stability with long-term play, especially in dynasty too, coach. I know we talk a lot about dynasty. Marvin would be a guy I'd be looking to move to try, kind of tier up just because the name value is so high.
Yeah, 100%. Like you can get a lot from Marv just based on his name, like you said. I saw yesterday a guy on X tweeted, "What if you got Marv in round 3 and he was your wide receiver 1? How would you be feeling?" And I responded with, "I feel like I'm gonna lose." Right? Like if he's the best receiver on your fantasy roster, you're probably gonna lose.
Yeah, that's a dangerous game because, like you said, coach. I mean, there's a world where he's wide receiver 24. If your wide receiver 1's 24, that's not cutting it. And you better have a dang good RB room or something like that, just because I don't see how he can float your fantasy team, coach, because their rankings are so close. Terry McLaurin was wide receiver 16. Marvin Harrison was wide receiver 18. My question to you is, which one would you rather have for this year in redraft?
Ooh, man, that's a tough one. Like, because I do think Terry's going to take a step back also. Oh gosh, maybe even Marvin that's in that scenario right now. What do you think?
I think I would take Marv too. I think it's
I just don't
safer.
think he has much competition.
Exactly. It's McBride, Connor, and Marvin Harrison Jr. That's it. So
I wouldn't feel good about it.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't feel good about it either. But I think that's going to do it for us, Coach. Those are our top 5 must-avoid players for our upcoming season. So if you be sure to like the stream, subscribe to the Face Off Sports Network. We have all sorts of content out there for you to get. Check out our Discord. Check out our Patreon. Links in the description. We'll catch you in the next one.